Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Dear Masuma, the show that tries to answer any of your deepest concerns and worries. My name is Sana Araji and I'm here with the one and only Masuma Ja'far. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. So we're going to carry on answering the questions. Inshallah, you can help this dear viewer with their question. So, Dear Masuma, I was meant to get married. However, my wedding unfortunately had to be called off due to COVID-19 and lockdown. My fiance and I really want to get married as soon as possible and are worried about potential problems arising, like another lockdown due to another rise in COVID cases, as there is no cure at the moment. It might be that the only convenient time we can get married potentially is during Muharram or Arba'een. It is frowned upon to get married during these months. Is it frowned upon to get married during the month of Muharram and Safar?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think, yes, for the first 10 days. I think it would be very insensitive to get married in the first 10 days of Muharram.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, you wouldn't be doing anything haram as such, but I think it would be very, very insensitive. After that, I don't see a problem with it. I suppose what you would have to take into consideration is not to do anything that would seem disrespectful, because these are the months of mourning. So to have nasheeds and happiness and joy and celebration would be considered as disrespectful. So if you did have a marriage, then it would be very much the nikah and maybe a sort of invite of family and friends where you would, have a meal of some sort, and that would probably be about it, sort of thing. I can't see it being more than that. I think anything that would be more would maybe considered as disrespectful to the memory of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and I don't think you'd get people who'd want to partake in it as well.
Yeah.
So I suppose it would depend on what your idea is for marriage is, one, how much you wanted your marriage to be a specific way, and again being truthful to yourself, because although at the moment you're saying her fiance and her don't want to wait, remember the marriage will only take place once. So if you're going to rush through it and then be upset about it for the rest of your life, or keep reminding your spouse that you didn't get the marriage you wanted, then maybe think about that and sort of wait. So it really, I think both of you have to decide what is it that you want out of the marriage, because I don't think there's anything wrong with having a big marriage where you have joyous occasions and you have more than one occasion, as long as you're not going into debt, as long as you're not doing it by with the wrong intentions, like to show off or to do it because that's what's expected, but do it because that's what you want and your family can afford that, then that's fine.
Yeah.
What would be beautiful is that this marriage would actually be very similar to the marriage of Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali alayhi salam. So you could use that as an excuse to have a small wedding and a beautiful wedding where you're not wasting. Again, it's very subjective whether it's called wasting or not. So I don't think I have the right to say it's wasting, but you're keeping it very small and you're doing it very much like they did, where you had the nikah recited and then you had the meal, the feast afterwards, and that was it.
Yeah.
So there are a few books that you can look at which are considered as authentic.
Okay.
There's a book that has been just translated into English. I can't remember the name of it now. In fact, I don't know the name of it in English and the name that they've chosen for it. But it will, inshallah, come out this Muharram, where they've looked at all the authentic sources and things. So I think it will be something that will open a lot of people's eyes and it'll be in English, which is beautiful, because I think we have very little in English.
Yeah, you're right.
Which you can then go back to, and it's a scholarly book, so you'll actually be able to go back to it and sort of look at what is authentic and what isn't, and it gives you the references to where it's been written and which book it's come in, and when it came in and sort of thing. So
That's a good
I'm
idea,
hoping
yeah.
that something like that sort of work will actually then take away all the things that we've added on.
So that will be kind of like a collection of what had happened during Muharram only? Would
Yeah,
it be
so the whole event of Ashura, the whole event of Karbala and
okay.
everything that happened just before it and just after it as well.
Okay, so that's very interesting, because at least then you're able to kind of see from what you've actually witnessed and know whether what was authentic and what was not.
Exactly.
Isn't it? So you can actually put kind of the theory and visualize how it is actually happening.
Then maybe sort of putting into effect that we start changing certain things that we're doing culturally, which may be wrong.
Which again is something difficult for people.
Yeah,
It's that you know, I think maybe the Arab community isn't so much. I know a lot of Asian communities, their cultural and Islamic, it kind of crosses over to the point where I think a lot of them believe cultural is their Islamic teaching. But I think it's very difficult. It's hard for them to say, no, this is not part of the religion, because it kind of becomes their religion.
Yeah, no, for sure. And going back to the question of marriage, if you think about it from that perspective, how much of the marriage ceremonies are to do with culture rather than religion?
Exactly.
So again, if this person is deciding to get married in Muharram or Safar, they have to think about what are the cultural things that they're going to have to put aside, because it would be disrespectful to, you know, the whole event of Karbala and Ashura and everything that happened.
Yeah.
So are they okay with that? And would their parents be okay with that? Because again, marriage is not just about the couple, it's about the whole family. So, you know, having those discussions with your family as well. The other thing maybe they can do is maybe just have the nikah recited. Yeah. So then they're in the eyes of Allah, they're married.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that they'll do which is haram as such,
Okay.
which will then stop them. Maybe if they were going to go down, you know, maybe do something that may be considered as a sin, they're saved from that. But wait till Muharram and Safar is over before they actually decide to have the celebrations of the marriage. But again, like they're saying, you know, we don't know what's happening with this COVID-19. What if the celebrations don't happen? What if it doesn't happen till next year? Again, it depends on how long they want to wait and what's going to happen, sort of thing. If you've had the nikah recited, then really legally, Islamically, you're husband and wife. You may not be living together, and I think that's probably the best kind of marriage to a certain extent, because you're enjoying being with each other, but without the responsibilities of marriage, of living together and you know, sort of adjusting and adapting yourself to each other. So you've got the best of both worlds, really, if you think about it.
No, you're right. And I guess, like, it comes down to prioritising again. Yeah. The COVID-19 situation, it is what it is. And so many people have had to cancel weddings, cancel trips, you know, they've been away from, haven't seen their parents. There's so many things. So I think maybe it's just prioritising what is important. Are they afraid of sinning, like you've said? So maybe they can do the nikah.
Yeah,
you know,
so
have
maybe
something
looking
simple.
at the reason why they want to get married. Yeah.
And then, like you said, they might not even need a ceremony or a celebration. They might be content with having, and maybe that is meant to be. You know, I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it is very, very highly recommended, and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, to feed people at specific events, like marriage is one of them.
Okay.
Even having the birth of a child is another one. But so there are specific, you know, events where you're told to feed the people. So even if you don't do anything else except the nikah at the moment, know that, you know, after COVID is over or whenever it's possible, then have that celebration of a walima, of a feast for the people. I think could you not do, for example, how can I say it, like a sadaqah thing where you would give, maybe slaughter some sheep and feed that amount of people that are in need? You could do.
So at least you're getting the benefit of obviously this giving the sadaqah and also feeding during your marriage in a way.
Yeah, you could do. What's stopping you from doing both? So why not?
You can do both.
Why not feed your community, your family, your friends in your community, and also feed those who are more needy?
Exactly.
Because I feel like we, you know, to bring unity and ummah within our own communities, we need to have these occasions where we come together and pray for each other, and weddings is one of those occasions. And again, you know, a wedding is not just a celebration, but it's about getting dua from everyone. So everyone who partakes in your wedding will do a little dua for you. And weddings are, marriage is a chance of growth, and whenever there is growth, there is difficulty in growth. So within the difficulty of marriage, you need duas.
Yeah.
So it's important to realize that, the more people I have in my wedding, the more people that are, actually praying for me, the easier the growth will inshallah be for me throughout my marriage.
That's absolutely beautiful, and I'm sure it does happen in some places, but I really don't believe that happens a lot of the time. I believe it's mainly about the materialistic gain, and I feel like when people get invited to a wedding, I really don't feel like they're making dua, but I feel like it's more celebrating and just being able to dress up and go to a party and like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like that is absolutely beautiful, and that's how it should be. But realistically, I don't think that's.
But we can again do both, as long as there's nothing haram happening in the celebration.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you wouldn't do that, dress up and celebrate during Muharram and Safar. But if you're having a normal wedding at a normal time, not outside of Muharram and Safar or outside of any of the Shahadat event commemorations, I don't think there's anything wrong with dressing up and celebrating, as long as there's nothing haram happening in that celebration and dressing up. So as long as hijab is maintained, so you're having it segregated, as long as there's no sort of mixing of the genders, as long as there's no sort of haram music, as long as there's nothing haram happening in these occasions, there's nothing wrong with that. Now it's up to me, as the person who's organising the event, or the families who are organising it, to ensure that there is nothing haram happening. And secondly, to take that opportunity to remind people to pray for me. So it's up to me to do that, because again, people will get into the materialistic aspect of it and enjoy it, and that's fine. But you can just sort of say to people, you know what, let's do a dua for the happy couple. Or I know my daughter's wedding, we had like a tree where people would then, it was a wooden tree, and then they would just write a dua and put it as a leaf on the tree.
Yeah, I was going to say something like that on the entrance before you come in, or something.
And posting it. So they've actually, because they've written it, they'll have thought about it and they'll do that dua.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just getting them to do a dua, getting them to remember again, we have, where we ask them to remember the marumeen of the family. So those who've passed away. And, so again, things like that, it's up to me as the organizer to try to think about how I'm going to do it. One of the things that I did to ensure that nothing haram happened in any of my children's wedding, because again, when it's not your wedding, although you have a little bit of control, you don't have full control.
Of course, yeah.
So one of the things that I did, alhamdulillah, I was blessed to go to the ziyarah of the 14 Masumeen just the year before. That we went. My children were getting married, so I went to Hajj. So I got to Medina, and then I got to the ziyarah of Iraq. Sorry, I didn't get to go to Iran. But what I did is, every time I went to any of these holy places, I actually invited that Masumeen to the wedding. And I said to them, I don't want you just to come for we start off with a majalis before the wedding ceremony start. I said, I don't want you to come to that. I want you to, not just to that, I want you to come to all the occasions. So the mehndi party, the bridal shower, the reception, the wedding itself, the cake cutting. I want you to be there at all the reception, at all the occasions. Yeah. And I went and I personally invited each of the Masumeen to all the events. And for Iran, I have a friend who lives in Iran, so I phoned them and I said to them, please, can you go to, Mashhad and go to, Bibi Fatima as well, and actually invite them to the wedding on my behalf, because I can't come. And then I sat my children down and I said, you know what? I've invited all the Masumeen to all your occasions. I'm just letting you know. And they were like, oh, that's really beautiful. And then afterwards, when they were sort of organising the wedding, it's like every so often they'd be, but we can't do that. The Masumeen's going to be there. But
that is such a good idea.
I just literally sat back and I was like, yeah, because they've been brought up with the understanding of, what it means that a Masum is going to be there, sort of thing. So I didn't have to do anything, and there was no disagreements, no arguments. It's like, and they had all the fun and everything. They had it, but there was nothing haram, which was so beautiful, because it's like I didn't have to be pulled into that, because it's like they have enough respect for the Masumeen to know that they can't have anything haram, because the Masumeen will be there.
Well, there you go. I think we all need to do that, and our children, because I think that's beautiful. To be honest, I've never heard anyone do that before. I'm sure they've asked for dua to the imams, but in that personalised way is amazing, because I guess like they know that there is going to be a holy spiritual individuals around, so therefore they're going to make sure that nothing haram.
And can you imagine the barakah that comes from these Masumeen actually attending your children's wedding? It's like throughout the whole time we just had this, literally this sukoon, this sort of
mashallah
contentment, because you actually felt their presence. It was so beautiful. It was amazing. Alhamdulillah.
I mean, I don't know whether that's because culturally, I guess different cultures have different ways of wedding. In my culture, my background, it doesn't really start with kind of supplications or dua. It just straight away goes into the kind of the party of it. So I've never experienced that in my culture. But I think, like you said, it's about the organizer, because the guests are just guests.
Yes,
and
exactly.
so when they do come, they are just going to turn up and have whatever is provided for them, right?
You're the host, yeah.
So the burden's upon you, and so you will get punished if you provide them with things that they can commit haram with. So, and I don't think people think like that. I think we have to, because you let go sometimes. You think, oh, it's a wedding, it's fine, we can get away with this.
Once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
But you know, everything that happens in the wedding will have an effect on your marriage going forward. And the marriage is such a huge thing.
Of course,
It's like, you know, honestly, you cannot go through marriage without God in the picture. You just can't.
And they say, like, you start something halal, it will remain halal. And I think a lot of people forget, or they don't know they're sinning because they get so into it, and they forget. You kind of get blinded sometimes.
Or just following what everyone else is doing.
Yes.
And it's, again, doing it parrot fashion. It's doing it without thinking. It's the same sort of principle. It's like we need to step back and start reflecting on why am I doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
And families are not really helping, to be honest, because I think they put a lot of pressure. I mean, obviously, if they're as wonderful as you and would invite the imams, that's amazing. But a lot of the time, they want lavish things for their children. So I feel like the children, bless them, are just having to tolerate what their parents, want. But as a child, do you think they could, if they believe their parents are kind of setting them up for something haram, are they allowed to stand up for themselves and say no?
No, of course. When it comes to haram and halal, you have to stand up for yourself. But also remember that, the marriage is huge for your parents. It's like since you were born, they're thinking of your marriage. Yeah. So I think the parents should have a say in the marriage. But at the same time, and the thing is, after the marriage, they have nothing. They've got a sort of a gap where you were, because now you've gone off to start your new life, and they've got this sort of hole, as in a way. Again, which isn't how it should be, because it's if we're bringing our children up for the sake of Allah, then that hole will not exist. Yeah. But again, that's another topic in itself. But just reminding yourself that it is about your parents as well. So allowing them to have it a little, the way that they want it, as long as it's not haram, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, lavish is very subjective.
Okay.
So it's you can't say this is asraf. Asraf is very subjective. So I think it's about allowing it's about reflecting and allowing yourself to think about, can I okay this in front of God? Will I be able to say that this was, because it's like for someone who doesn't have any money to spend, a couple of £100 is a huge deal. For someone who has millions, to spend a couple of £100 is nothing.
Yeah, of course.
So it's very, very subjective.
Yeah.
So whether you have a Rolls Royce driving you in, or whether you have a Mini driving you in, again, it's very subjective. It's like someone who doesn't have much money would think, what a waste of money to bring a Rolls Royce in just to drive you into the mosque or whatever. But it's not a big deal for someone who has lots of money. So it's very subjective. And just because they're spending a lot on the wedding doesn't mean they're not giving to other worthy causes. Again, you can't make those judgments.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know what's
going on. I think the thing is, for this person and for anyone else who's getting married at any time, it's about reflecting on the purpose of the marriage, one, reflecting on how you want your marriage, what is the way that you're going to get the maximum du'as, the maximum benefit from all the celebrations that are going to happen, all the events that are going to happen. And sort of thinking it through before you actually organise it.
Okay. And like in this instance, with it being during Muharram, if, for example, it's the parents who are insisting for it to be during Muharram, that they don't want their children to wait, they want them to get married, but the children are spiritually not kind of happy, do they have the right to say to their parents, I don't want to get married in Muharram, I would rather wait until Muharram and Safar passes, and then I feel like, I want to get married? I
think it's a conversation that they can have, but again, it has to be done very respectfully. I would have thought it would be the other way around. Generally, it's the parents who would want them to wait, because parents don't want to let go of their children, one. And secondly, I think it's the older generation have a much more attachment to Muharram than the younger generation do when it comes to that concept of grieving and that cultural aspect of, no, it can't be done in Muharram.
Okay.
Whereas I think the younger generation would be, well, why not? As long as I'm being respectful, why not? So I think it would be the other way around. But again, it's having those conversations and doing it respectfully is what's important.
Okay, I guess so. I mean, like you said, we have to be careful, and we have to, as long as there's respect between there. I mean, it's difficult. I understand a lot of people are having issues with the COVID-19, but inshallah, let's hope that this helps the viewer, and inshallah, if anyone else is, having similar issues, it might not be marriage, it might be other things during the COVID-19, inshallah, Allah will try and Allah will protect you and guide you, inshallah. And if you do have any more questions regarding this situation, please do forward it to us, and we'll put it forward to Masuma, inshallah. And thank you for joining us again for another episode of Dear Masuma, and we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.